Okay, guys, I wasn't planning on making another video, but I just watched this um, YouTuber's video who I'm subscribed to, and I've mentioned her channel before in one of her videos, and it's just like, she's very open and honest about like her life and her struggles, and I feel like I relate to a lot of her content as well because it's just like life is tough for a lot of people right now. Like, it doesn't matter your background, where you live, where you're from, the economy is hard right now for a lot of people to survive. And I talk a lot about how I also struggle with the shopping addiction and have debt, and I feel like those are a lot of the problems that I have I created for myself. But when I watch people with families and who have children they have to take care of, I empathize so much for those people because I can't imagine like raising a family in a this economy and having like struggling to pay your bills. And it just reminds me, even with all of my problems that I have and I'm dealing with, I still have so much to be grateful for. It also made me realize like you have to be like, what type of person would wish harm or struggle on another human being? Like, I'll never forget, I had this person who got upset about something I said in a video and like told me like, I hope you that's why you're in your situation and you're struggling and you'll never be out. Like, I can't imagine what type of person would ever wish struggle on another human being simply because they don't like what they said, don't like their opinion, whatever. It's like, I don't care if people disagree with me or disagree with me. I don't wish harm for people. I don't wish for people to struggle or be in, harsh circumstances or situations. Like, I don't have a heart that wishes ill will for other people. Like, I wouldn't wish for people to be in my situation. Um, but even me saying that, like, I know I don't have a horrible situation. I have a lot to be grateful for. My real problem right now is budgeting and following my budget. Like, that's really my problem. Right now I have a decent job. I make, I'm making, I actually don't know if I'm making the most money before taxes, I want to say. So I'm currently making the most money I've ever made. I'm losing my voice, I don't know why. I'm currently making the most money I've ever made in my life, even with my hours fluctuating at my job. I'm making a decent amount of money. I'm just not budgeting properly and following my budget the way I need to be. So that's why this month I'm really trying to focus on just getting through a month without doing like frivolous spending and shopping, because that's been my problem for the past years on years on years. And I know, people see my videos. I mean, it is a real struggle whether people believe it or not. It's hard for me to just stop spending, and people, I guess, hear me say that and maybe don't understand. But I'm like, it wouldn't be a problem if I could just stop and follow my budget my budget like I need to. But anyways, that's what we're working on. That's what I'm trying to like better be better about. Is like, I don't want to be stuck in this cycle of struggling with being able to save money and having debt and always owing people money. So we're really trying to get better. And like, I'm figuring out what works for me. Once I figure out what works for me, I will share that with you guys long in the future. But I take everything one day at a time. I might have spent some money yesterday, but today I didn't spend any money. I bought one thing that I needed, some deodorant, and that was it. And I'm proud of myself for not buying things I really didn't need. Even though it's like I clearly have enough as it is. So it's just like I'm learning to just be grateful for everything I have. Even if it's not a lot, just be grateful for everything that you have, because you never know what other circumstances people are going through. And my heart really, like, I don't wish for anyone to have to um live in those live in the like live in a struggle live in a struggle stressful situation. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. I wouldn't wish for someone to have to live in their car, or to be homeless, or any of those things. Those are horrible circumstances some people deal with, that I empathize with. And I'm like, I pray for those people to be blessed with the right opportunities to get through and overcome those circumstances. But I don't know, it's just like, I don't know how there's people that can wish for people to go through struggle like that. Like, why would you want for someone to go through struggle like that? um and I get it. There's some people can learn more from that struggle situation. I guess that's why some people are like, oh, you won't understand till you've been in that situation. And there's people like, people are just trying to survive in this world. It's just like, I'm not faulting anyone or judging someone for whatever circumstances they're in, but I'm always going to hope the best for other people. I'm not going to wish for someone to have to, like, be homeless or living on the street or struggling. Like, I truly hope and pray, like, anyone going through like a harsh circumstance in life, whether you're living with parents, whether you're living in your car, whether you're just, trying to pay off debt, working on an addiction, working on whatever struggle, I truly hope and pray for, blessings to come your way so that you can get through those circumstances, and that um just trust God. Honestly, the best advice I can give to anyone is trust God to get through whatever circumstances you're in. As many times as I've thought I was going to end up homeless, I'm still here. I'm still have a place to live. I'm not on the street, you know, and that there's a blessing in that. And that's been, something, like, I always have this fear of being homeless. And I know, like, if it really came down to it and I had to live in my car, I would do that. I would have to if I had no choice. That's the reason a lot of people end up, they have nowhere to go. They don't have family or friends or anyone to support them. And it's like, I'm really am grateful for my family, because I know I get on here, and I do want to say, like, I don't think ill of my parents at all. Like, my parents do things that sometimes are frustrating for me, but I truly don't appreciate everything my parents have done to help me, because the only reason I haven't been on the streets is because I have parents who have allowed me to stay with them, and have the means to um help me find a place, or just are willing to help me. That's something I'm learning, like, that's a blessing. So as much as I've, maybe been hurt or angry about certain things my parents may have said to me, or told me, I have amazing parents who are such a blessing to me in a lot of ways, because I really, like I said, only have a place to stay right now because of my parents. I haven't been able to afford my own place because of my own mistakes and my own failings, wasting my money on shopping and buying all these things I didn't need when I should have prioritized getting my own place. And yes, granted, there was other circumstances in my life, like my unstable jobs, not making enough money, that affected that as well. But I've been at my current job almost a year now, and so I really do have, no, I have like the ability. I have the ability to work. I'm not, sick. I'm healthy. I'm able-bodied. I can go out and work when I need to. And that's a privilege, that's a blessing, right? And it's just like, I don't want to take for granted the things that I do have because I'm so focused on what I don't have. And that's kind of the lesson that I'm learning. You know, I don't want to be feeling sorry for myself. My circumstances are not horrible. I promise y'all. Like, I might get on here and vent sometimes about my problems, my worries, the things that are stressing me out, but I promise y'all I'm good. Like, God's got me, honestly. I'm not good because of anything that I've done to honestly deserve what I have. It's literally just because of God and having loving, God-fearing parents who are willing to help me and who love me and care for me. And I know so many people who don't have that, and they are struggling on their own without support from their family. And I honestly think there's so many people that wouldn't be as far in life if it wasn't for their families' help and support and love. And for those people who don't have that support for family, I hope y'all, those people, learn that you have a heavenly Father who is also your family, who's your creator, who loved you, created you, and designed you with a purpose. And even if you can't depend on your family, you can always depend on Him to be there for you, because there's a lot of people who are um sometimes left to just figure life out on their own. I know one of my coworkers was telling me, and I didn't know how to respond at the time because it was a lot, but they were saying how, their parents kicked kicked them out at 17 with no place to go, and he's like been on his own since 17, and stressful, and how he was like suicidal and things like that. And I'm just like, like, I can't imagine feeling abandoned by your parents at a young age and forced to figure everything out on your own. But that's a circumstance a lot of people face, unfortunately. Now, I also think too, perspectives, there are different perspectives at play. I do think, parents have some rules in place for their children, and when children don't follow those rules, and parents say, look, if you want to live in my house, you have to follow my rules, and those children don't respect their parents' rules, and then their parents follow through with that, that's a circumstance some people have because they didn't want to, live by the rules their parents gave them. And so it's just like, it's understandable, perspective you might have as a child, being like, well, I don't have to live by my parents' rules and I can just do whatever I want. But at the same time, it is, you know, the Bible does say to honor your mother and father, because there's a blessing in honoring your parents. But I also think too, it's like when you have, when you're stubborn or more stubborn and you want to do things your own way and you don't want to listen to your parents, sometimes you do wind up in circumstances. There's a lot of things that wisdom that parents give their kids, and sometimes as kids we don't want to hear them because we think we know more and we don't want to listen to our parents. But your parents have a lot more knowledge. And when you have parents who do love and care for you and want the best for you, they're not telling you things because they are trying to harm you or put you in harm's way. They're telling you things that are they're telling you those things because they want to see you flourish and thrive. And so I often see like there's two sides to some of the, because I'm going to say this in, well, I don't want to say like the personal reason I'm saying this, but basically it's just, some my parents aren't my enemies, right? And I don't want to paint it that way, like because I vent out of frustration about certain things that um I'm not a victim, right? I'm not a victim. My parents are not abusing me, harming me in any way. Like neither of my parents have ever put me in harm's way, more so as my parents have are giving me reality checks a lot of the time about, just the reality of I have to be able to survive on my own. Like my parents are not always going to be there to help me, and I've literally only had a place to live most of my life because of my parents, because of being able to stay with one of my parents. So that's why I'm saying all this, because as much like I don't know, I feel like I don't want to complain about my parents on here again, because I do have great parents who love and care for me and have done a lot to help me throughout my life. And I feel like I don't always show my appreciation for them the way I should, because I get frustrated or stressed out. But I honestly really do love and appreciate my parents for everything. My parents truly don't owe me any help. Um, my parents are helping me literally only because they love me and they want to see me succeed. They're not trying to put me in harm's way, more so as, prepare me for the reality of, as an adult, I have to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and not, I can't depend on my parents forever. And that's never been like my goal. I know some people watch my videos and are like, ugh, you just are entitled, believe you're entitled to your parents. It's like, no, I'm not entitled to my parents' help. I just would appreciate it sometimes, right? That's not, I feel like it's not the same thing. Entitled means like you think your parents owe it to you, versus being like, I would like for my parents to be able to help me, but I'm not owed that from my parents. However, I do think like it's not really, I mean, like a parent asking their father for help, like a child asking their father for help, I also don't think is a bad thing. Like I feel like I'm gonna always need my parents. Like I don't feel like as a, like I don't understand kind of like this notion where it's wrong for a child to ask their parents for help when they need it. I don't agree with that notion, because some people have made like very harsh remarks about that too on my videos before, and it's just like, you know, I do think like people who I think there's two things. When you're forced to be independent from a young age, you are taught kind of self-independence and self-perseverance, but it comes with a lot of, heartache and a lot of pain, maybe feeling like you don't have family that would help you if you really needed it. But at the same time, the other side of it is you don't want to be too dependent on your parents to the point where you can't do anything for your own. So I feel like I understand both perspectives of, how people maybe view my situation. I think for me, it's like the reality is like both are can be problems, being so dependent on your parents that you never, you know, learn to stand on your own 2 feet isn't a great thing, but also being like your parents abandoning you on your own to just figure everything else out is also not great. Like there's an important balance that should be there where your parents should encourage you to be independent but also shouldn't, you know, want to see you fail and shouldn't leave you to just fall flat on your face with no guidance and no help given to, protect you, And biblically, the Bible does talk about, like it's wrong for a parent to have the means to help their child and not help them when they're in need, That's not something that's like a loving parent. Like not one person would sit here and think it's right for, say your dad's like a millionaire or whatever, and you're suffering, and they have a child that's homeless, and that father's not offering his home to his child because he's saying, oh, you need to fend for yourself and figure it out. Like not one person would look at the father who's a millionaire, lives in a mansion, having a son that's homeless and being unwilling to help them. Not one person would call that father a loving father or a great father. And so there is a verse in the Bible about, people who don't take care of their children or their family, really is what it is. Like that's biblically, that's a sin to, not want to help family that you see is in need. Like we're always called to love and help those in need, and especially if it's your family, you shouldn't want to see your family fail or hurting. But there's so many people that don't have support from their family, and that does hurt hurt me to know how many people feel completely abandoned by their family and have no support. And I hope those people realize that there's a family. I feel like that's why like a church community is also really important. Like having a church family, a church community as a Christian is just like another way. Like I've seen so many people find, families in their church communities, people around them that will always offer to help. One of the most beautiful things to me about a church community is how people will come together to help other people in church, to help people when they're struggling, when they're hurting, when they're going through harsh circumstances. And it's just like, you know, that's why the church exists. That's why the Bible talks about where two or three are gathered, there's power in numbers, and why there's an importance. Like the the church exists because we need a community of people to support each other when you're in need, having people being willing to help one another when they see them in need is literally because that's how the church was designed. If someone is suffering on the streets, you should be able to go to a church and someone there should be willing to help. Someone who has the means to help should want to help, their brother or sister in Christ. That's what it's all about. So again, I think like all of that to say, I'm very grateful for the parents that I have. I'm very grateful for all of the help both of my parents have given me. I do have a lot to be grateful for. I'm very blessed in a lot of ways, and I know I'm going to get through better on the other side, because one thing about me is I'm working on myself, you know. I'm not sitting here pretending to, you know, have all the answers or know everything. I'm being honest about, you know, this is my struggles, this is my problem, this is what I'm working on, and taking the steps. Now, granted, do I still make mistakes? Yes. Do I still have more I could work on? Can I be better at certain, a lot of other aspects of my life? Yes, but at least I'm trying, you know? And to me, I feel like that's what's important. As long as you're not giving up. Just because you fail doesn't mean you stop trying. Just because, you know, I failed or made mistakes in my life doesn't mean I completely give up and stop trying. And ultimately, I believe God has a plan and purpose for everyone in everyone's life. And if you put your trust in God, I promise you will be okay, because God can make a way out of no way. Trust and believe that. There's so many amazing, beautiful testimonies of people who've been through, you know, some of the worst of circumstances, and God delivered them and brought them out of homelessness, out of suicidal thoughts, out of depression, out of anxiety, out of all of these things. And if He can do it for them, He can do it for you. So never stop believing, don't lose faith, and trust God, and everything will be okay. And that is all I have to say.